When you're first learning how to shift, you're taught to hide that slide in between the two notes. But in the right moment, it can actually sound really beautiful. And there's so many different variations and so many different options for what you can do with your shifting sounds. So in this lesson, I'm going to show you some of my favorites and how to properly execute them. Before you can explore all of the different variations in shifting sounds, you have to be able to do a shift without any sound in between the two notes at all. And that's going to differ how you execute that depending on whether you're shifting with a slur in the bow or you're shifting with two separate notes. So let's go over the separate note slur first, or separate note shift first. So let's say you're going from G to D in thumb position, and you're playing those separate bows. You can kind of conceal that shifting sound with the bow change, but you do still have to be careful to not let that shifting sound come out. So the way that you can do this is simply just speed up that hand, and also we'll talk a little bit more about this in a second when we talk about slurs, but you want to lighten up the weight ever so slightly before you get to that top note or bottom note, depending on which direction you're going. And also, you don't necessarily want a space in between the two notes. That isn't always nice to hear. So when you're practicing this, make sure you start with a space in between so you can practice that motion and then try to eliminate that space slowly. So I had a couple different shifting sounds when I was doing that, and that's okay. You just want to keep working on it and keep trying to refine it. So now let's talk about what you need to do if you are slurring those two notes. So I mentioned lightening up the weight ever so slightly in between the two separate bowings, but when you're doing this and you're slurring, it's even more important. So when you shift from that G to D, you're going to slow down the bow just a little bit and then lighten up the weight in the arm. Watch my bow as I do this. So my bow actually stopped that time, and you don't necessarily want to do that, but I just wanted you to see exactly what I was talking about. What you eventually want to get it to is that you're just slowing the bow down a little bit and then releasing that weight. And so once you master that, you'll be able to experiment with all of the different sounds that you can get. So let's talk about those. The first one is a shift with a slide. And there are a lot of different mini variations in between this one. And you can do a quick slide, you can do a slow slide that sounds more like a glissando, and you can also choose where you want to place the slide, at the beginning of the shift or towards the end of the shift. So why don't I play the excerpt from Lieutenant Kiji, and I'm going to show you exactly what I mean with that shifting sound. So this starts with a G to D. And here I'm not concealing that shifting sound, right? So I did a couple different shifting sounds there. At the beginning, I did that classic slide. And that's more of just a glissando, going evenly up from G to D. Okay, and if I'm playing this in an orchestra, I'm probably not going to do something that intense. I'll probably do something with a little bit less of a slide. And then there, I placed the slide closer to the beginning of the shift. So when I finished, I was really just landing on that note, and the slide kind of disappeared towards the end. If I wanted to reverse it and do the opposite, it would sound like this. So you can see I'm sort of cutting the note in half, and it's almost like a crescendo, but with a slide. That makes sense. You can also do a vibrato shift. I love doing these. These are really dramatic kind of shifts. So you basically do vibrato as you glissando back down. This is really common in more romantic pieces. I love to do this in piazzolla. So you can go both directions, and that's kind of an intense phrasing kind of thing. And then the next kind of shifting sound that you can do is a landed shift. And this is really great for those dramatic, really heavy romantic pieces. What you do here is you shift, let's say you're going from 1 to 2. You shift on first finger and slide up to the note underneath the note that you're landing on, and then hammer down on the top note. So it sounds like this. And you can do it with a slur or without, either one. It just sounds a little bit heavier, a little bit more final. So now, of course, the bow change matters, and we've talked about this a little bit, but when you're doing a shift, it's either going to be in between a slur or in between two separate notes. And you can choose to arrive at the note that you're shifting to before the bow change. And that's a really dramatic way to do these shifts as well. You'll notice that I'm a big fan of drama, so I love doing this. It's almost like I'm adding a little extra 16th note or grace note or something. It's just a little bit of an extra piece that you can add. And then, of course, that's the landed shift. So these are all very dramatic and all very romantic, and it depends on the time period that you're playing the pieces in. A lot of these expressions are a lot better for romantic pieces, and then some of the lighter sounds, like you would never do a vibrato shift in a piece by Mozart. That would just never happen. I mean, you could do it, but it probably isn't the best decision, and you definitely wouldn't do any of these really dramatic slides or glisses when you're playing a Baroque piece. So when you're practicing this on your own, I would do either in context in your rep, or maybe take the shifting drill and practice, say, okay, today I'm going to do a shifting drill in thumb position with the landed shift. So now let me put all this in context for you. I'm going to play the beginning of the Bottesini Concerto No. 2, and I'm going to use as many shifting sounds as I possibly can. I'm going to use all the ones that we talked about in this lesson, as well as a couple more. Choosing a shifting sound is a creative choice, and you want complete control over that creative choice, just like everything else. You don't want it to just become a habit. So when you're practicing your shifting, make sure you're practicing all of the different variations that we went over and anything else you can think of. You want to make sure that you can do anything between absolutely no sound in between the two notes to a really beautiful slide or glissando from the bottom to the top. So when you're in the right moment, you can choose the perfect sound to fit the music.